or 3. And Sam forgot to turn his microphone back on.
Sorry about that. And we're back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTK.com. As we do Thursday, every Thursday at 9 o'clock hour, MGoBlog Roundtable crew joins us for the MGoBlog Roundtable, starting off first with Mr. Brian Cook, Mr. MGoBlog himself. Brian, good morning. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
All right. And I'm doing great. Of course, Seth Fisher. Seth, how are you this morning?
Sam, if you had hair, I'm sure it would look just as slept in as the rest of ours right now.
And what, Mr. Craig Ross? Craig, how are you this morning?
I'm fine. I'm thinking of changing my name to Krabby Hoff.
All right, man. Well, so let's start there. This is our first time to chat, our first time to talk since Sunday's post game theatrics, right? Just to get your quick take on that, on the punishment that came thereafter. And then, of course, we can get about the business of the response from Michigan against Rutgers. But just your thoughts on Sunday, Brian, and the punishments that followed.
I think it's faintly ridiculous that Michigan's the only team that copped a suspension for that. Obviously, Juwan went too far, shouldn't have done that. But fundamentally, I'm in favor of spiciness. So the next time Michigan plays Wisconsin, it's going to be an event. And so don't do it again. Let's move on. Worst things happen in every period in a hockey game.
Seth?
Yeah, I was calling it a slappy fish because I couldn't figure out exactly what to call it. Like a downward motion hit, kind of head to the side thing, where he also kind of rubs the head. But obviously, I thought Juwan was wrong. I thought that he was the most wrong. So him getting suspended 5 games seemed about right. And I agree with Brian that I'm surprised the Big Ten didn't look at some of the things that the assistant coaches of Wisconsin did, both in instigating and then afterwards. They had one assistant coach tackle Terrence Williams, and there were fans sitting right behind that. It's hard to see it on the video, but then there are a lot of fans who've been there afterwards who've been saying, "Yeah, I was right there and watched this guy tackle Terrence Williams into the floor." So I'm also kind of. You don't normally interact with a lot of Wisconsin fans, and some of them who've been jumping into my mentions are, it's just the whole program seems to think that this is 100% nothing to do with them. And I'm like, no, you guys were involved in this. Juwan was absolutely wrong. And I think Michigan fans kind of have to stop right there. But everyone else is pretty watching Wisconsin being like, are you guys going to take any responsibility for this at all?
They took absolutely none whatsoever. I sort of, before I get to Craig, man, the Terrence Williams one, I mean, he got tackled, he got punched. If anyone was, within his rights to defend himself, could legitimately say they were defending themselves, it was Terrence Williams. But hey, I digress. It's as fired up as I've ever seen Craig Ross be after Phil's press conference. What was that, Tuesday?
Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, that's as fired up as I've ever seen you be, Craig.
Well, yeah, I have some ambivalence in that. On the one hand, yeah, Juwan deserves his suspension. On the other hand, I think he should have hit the dude harder. I mean, I think he should have gotten his money's worth. And I mean, that was barely a tap. I mean, on the back of the dude's head. And if you recall, that guy, Krabahoff, was Brad Davison, the dirtiest player in the Big Ten. And he cold cocked a guy at Purdue named, I'm blocking on his name. He was a guard at Purdue. He just about knocked him cold with a dirty elbow in a Purdue game, and that was sort of what he did because he couldn't play basketball, but he could throw his elbows around. And so for Krabahoff, who was, now I agree, Juwan had no reason to be mad except at his own team. All this stuff about timeouts it was all nonsense. Juwan was just mad because his team shot whatever it was, 4 of 25 from 3, and that's what really cost them the game. And Juwan was wrong not to shake Guard's hand, but once Juwan was doing the walk by on Guard, and it was clear Guard knew Juwan was upset, Guard just should have let it go. Even I have a quote from Cowherd. He said. This is pre-suspension. He said Greg Gard and Juwan Howard should both be suspended. Both failed as adults. Period. And he said Greg Gard had no reason to grab Juwan Howard, and he should be suspended. Now I don't know if Gard should really be suspended. That was Cowherd's take, and certainly, perhaps Gard was less culpable than Juwan. But after that, this is pretty much Wisconsin. You've got Terrence Williams and Fold sort of protecting Juwan, standing in front of him. Terrence is being a peacekeeper, and here comes Krabahoft yelling and screaming, pushing Folds aside, tries to push through Terrence, can't do it, screaming at Juwan over something. I'd like to know what he was saying. And so Juwan gives him this, I would call it a cuff on the back of the head. And as Brian says,
Flappy Fish. Call this Flappy
yeah,
Fish.
yeah, it was nothing. And then Terrence Williams gets attacked by an assistant coach who gets nothing. You have a coach attacking a player, and that gets nothing. And then he gets punched in the face by number 0. Terrence is supposed to just do nothing when a coach tackles him and another guy hits him in the face. What the hell is this all about? Terrence should not have been suspended. That coach should be suspended for a long time. Krabahoff should be suspended. Yes, Musa should have been suspended, because if you swing at somebody, you should hit something other than a towel, which is what Musa managed to hit. And so, to me, yes. Was Juwan wrong? Yes. Does he deserve his punishment? Yes. But for Wisconsin and the Wisconsin athletic director to be oblivious to their own role is pathetic. And
that's Wisconsin, though, man. Like,
I'm going to root against them, and I've never been a Wisconsin hater. But man, from now on, they could be playing Michigan State. I'm rooting for Michigan State. I became a Sparty fan.
How long have they defended Brad Davison? Yeah. And how much more indefensible has Brad Davidson's actions been over the course of his career?
Well, he tripped a guy in this game. It was a very dangerous play.
And he was trying to cup check Hunter Dickinson, but Hunter Dickinson, he got him in the stomach. So it's like, that's just who he is. And there's no peep from anybody from Wisconsin. Like, if you're a Wisconsin fan and you're trying to play up the fact that Juwan Howard's a bad dude, I'm not listening to you unless you have, I'm embarrassed that Brad Davidson represents my university somewhere on your Twitter feed. Yeah. Right?
I mean, the dude, tells you everything you need to know about Brad Davison. After the fracas is brought under control, he's trying to lead the team, over to sing the song, going through
sing Varsity, yeah, which is the song that they stole from us when George Little went from Michigan to Wisconsin. They didn't have a song.
Of course.
But yeah, he's suddenly like possessed by this deep desire to go sing Varsity while Michigan is standing right where they need to be.
Right. And of course,
I'm like, no, dude, that's Brad Davison. Wow.
Yeah. Everyone ignored it.
People are giving the benefit of the doubt to in all of basketball.
Yeah. So anyway, water under the bridge, so to speak. Juwan suspended for 5 games, 4 more left. Musa and Terrence out last night against the Rutgers team, fellas, that had been trending up. They had won before they lost to Purdue. They on the road, mind you. They had won 4 straight, and all the teams were ranked when they beat them. It was Michigan State, at Wisconsin was in there. I know they beat Illinois and Ohio State. So I mean, this was a squad that, for according to most, had punched their tournament ticket, and they beat Michigan earlier this season. And Michigan in this game, Brian, basically, I think past 2-0, Michigan never trailed again.
No, they didn't. And, it's pretty hard not to just simplify everything to shooting, right? Like, Geo Baker went off against Michigan in the first game. He's 2-7 from 2 in this game. He's 0-4 from 3. Rutgers shoots 2 of 12 from 3. Michigan shoots 7 of 22, which isn't great. It's 32%, but that's like the first game in the last 3 months that Michigan hasn't shot either 50% or 15%. So just hitting sort of the broad, sort of average middle on your 3-point shooting turns Michigan into a pretty decent team. And then we are well aware that Michigan is undersized, doesn't really have a wing defender. So if you have pull-up game, you're probably going to do some work, and Ron Harper did, but nobody could hit a 3 for Rutgers, and that was about it.
Yeah. It helps that Caleb Houston saw his first bucket go in there, Craig. But
Yeah.
I said, like I said to Phil, and I don't know if you heard the interview.
I did.
I felt like the way he started that game, it wasn't just that he saw the ball go through the hoop, his first shot. It was he came out, he got that block on the defensive end. Then on the offensive end, he gets he's attacking the rim, gets a Euro step and finish. He had a pass on the side pick and roll. It was like all parts of his game were really engaged, and the shooting seemed to follow along with. Now, maybe it's as simple as saying he's better shooting at home than on the road. I acknowledge that could be the case, but it certainly felt like the most engaged in all the other aspects of his game that we've seen him be. And I'd be surprised if that didn't contribute to his offensive success in this game.
A couple things. One is when Brian has mentioned this sort of on-off switch on Michigan's 3-point shooting. So I went back and checked, and in the games Michigan has won this year, they've shot 41.1% from 3, which is pretty good. And in the games they've lost, 21%. I mean, so that spread is remarkable. But then I thought, well, maybe it's not remarkable. So I went back and looked at Indiana, which seems to, in the same general ballpark of the standings and shoots at a 3-point clip, similar to what Michigan does. And they are 35% in wins and 28% in losses. That's probably an ordinary split, is my guess, at least. So the Michigan dichotomy of 40 and 20 is really quite remarkable. I don't know what to make of it. In terms of Caleb, I mentioned, as you may recall, last summer that I saw him play in the FIBA games for the Canadian team. And while I thought he was the best player on the Canadian team and did some things very well, he shot the ball very poorly from 3. And that was concerning to me. So I've been somewhat skeptical of him, but I think I'm seeing his game beginning to really come around. Yes, last night was his best game by far. I think he's working harder on defense. And the big thing I'm seeing on his shot is earlier in the season, he was rushing everything. It was like the ball was hot and he had to get it out of his hands. Last night, he was more in rhythm. He was a little more patient. And I think I've seen some of that, as the season has gone along. So, he did rebound the ball very well in the game they lost against Wisconsin. I think they had 10. He had 10 rebounds in the Wisconsin game. So a lot of his game is beginning to pick up. And last night, I think you really saw it. And with when he makes his first shot, he seems like a different player. He makes that first shot, and all of a sudden you sort of breathe a sigh of relief and say, okay, this may be a good one for him.
So I think, Brian's right. They obviously didn't shoot it well from 3 as a team, but they did shoot it well from the mid-range. And I'm thinking of Eli and Devontae Jones in particular. I don't know what their combined 3-point percentage was, but it wasn't very good. But man, both of those guys had it going from a mid-range perspective last night. And granted, that part of the defense was giving them that shot, but they made them pay for doing it.
Yeah, I that was a pretty simple, probably a 70s game at one point, because Rutgers was taking away the rim and they were taking away the 3-point line at first. And what did they give Michigan? They just gave them all those jumpers. So first they were going to elbows from Hunter Dickinson, and then I love the one where Eli he goes under the basket, draws the entire team, comes out, and then he's like, mid-court, and there's nobody there. It's just like, okay, I guess I'll shoot it from here. And then I guess you were on the phone this morning, and that was planned. Like that was something that the coaches saw. It was going to be a hole in the Rutgers defense, and said, this is what we got to attack. And so they practiced it, because normally mid-range jumpers, even if they're open, they go in 44% of the time or whatever, and that's not a great shot. But this becomes if you're practicing it, I guess that's a way you can up that shot. And that's been kind of like that soft spot you can find against teams that are just overcommitting to the numbers.
Yeah, and it's significant to me that against that team, a team that has been playing well, a team that is going to check you, they're going to guard you, that this team found some things last night. Now, here's the $1 million question, Brian, and I don't expect you to know, but can they repeat it? So far, the answer has been no. They can't string back-to-back coherent offensive efforts together. I guess the one thing that would lend itself to that maybe being the case this time is they played decent against Illinois last time without Hunter, and this is a home game. So these are back-to-back home games. Maybe that will contribute to them finding some offensive success in this one on Sunday.
Well, I mean, again, it's really hard not to go back to the shooting. Like, I thought Michigan's offensive performance in the Wisconsin game was really good, at least in terms of the quality of shots they got up, but they shot 16% from three. So you can't win games like that. And I mean, I was doing the preview for this game and I looked up some stats on Synergy, and Michigan is 90th percentile at contested jumpers, and they're 26th percentile at uncontested jumpers. So this is just a team that is not successfully executing on a lot of good looks. And there's, it kind of boggles the mind. I mean, this is not a team that is heavy on shooting. It's true. They usually start two non-shooters, depending on how you consider Devontae Jones, and who's really struggling. And, that's Michigan needs one or two more shooters off the bench, and they just don't really have it. And I don't want to be so reductive where I'm like, this is the whole problem, but that's the whole problem.
When I say they played decent against Illinois, look, relatively speaking, they didn't shoot the ball well, but it was a close game until the final 4 minutes of the contest.
Yeah, didn't they have like a lead very briefly deep into that game?
Yeah, so
I think they were ahead by a point or two at the 10-minute mark, and it was still close at around 4 minutes.
They were down one with 7 minutes left, and then
they just fell apart, which is pretty remarkable considering they didn't have Hunter, that they were using Jace and Jaron Folds to check Kofi. I mean, so Michigan played actually a remarkably good game, except they didn't shoot it.
Right. So I'm curious, what are you seeing how this team responded last night without Juwan, without Musa, without Terrence, looking at this slate of games, and Phil brought it up. They're trying to find some rhyme or reason to what's going on too. I mean, he seems perplexed. We talked about why can't they put up more shots than any Michigan team I've been around. I know he's only been here a few years, but he said they put in the work. They don't seem reluctant to shoot in games, and some games they fall, some games they don't. But he said this morning, we shoot better at home. The next 3 games are at home. That being the case, understanding all the poor shooting dynamics that have been in play up to this point, I'm curious, Seth, do you have any greater optimism based on this slate being at home that they're going to be able to pull out a couple of more of these down the stretch?
I mean, I'd rather play Michigan State at home than Breslin. That's kind of seems to be an important distinction.
And they're struggling.
Yeah, and Michigan's above Michigan State in net now. So the rankings are actually kind of looking at Michigan, going their season's been better than State's in a lot of ways. I wanted to go back to something that Craig mentioned. It goes back to the shooting too. That Caleb Houston, just a few nights ago, I looked at his numbers. He was 46% on 3-point shooting in wins, 17% in losses. So I mean, it's not just the team how they shoot. It's just Caleb, and it's plausible that this guy, freshman, he played for a pretty big school, but he was not the focus of it. When other fans are yelling at him, maybe just gets in his head. He's got a little bit of a kind of a side shot that goes near his ear, and maybe it just comes down to that, and like the support that he gets at at Chrysler, and like the way that people cheer about him, and like maybe that it really is just all it is Houston shooting. But yeah, I mean, these are definitely winnable games. Illinois is tough, but I think Curbelo is not the danger we thought he was before. So they are who they are. Michigan can beat that team. Michigan could also beat that team by 20 if Kofi is dominating.
Illinois is kind of scuffling right now. They their last 4 games they got annihilated by Purdue. They squeezed by Northwestern when Northwestern didn't shoot any threes. They lost to this Rutgers team by 11, and then they beat Michigan State at Michigan State, but Michigan State is in a total free fall right now. So they're definitely beatable, especially at home, especially when you have Hunter Dickinson back. I think it's definitely something that Michigan can achieve.
Yeah, far be it for me to I'm not sitting like Michigan is the riding high right now. Michigan has certainly been inconsistent, but it's full scale, to your point, Brian, full scale swoon for Michigan State. And I wonder what you guys make of that. I mean, this was a team that some were talking up as a team that could maybe make a run in the postseason, and they've fallen on really hard times. And I'm curious what you guys see when you look at that squad as potential reasons why.
Well, they were kind of surfing on some pretty unsustainable shooting for a long time. And honestly, it kind of looks like they still are. Like they had 2 guys shooting more than 50% from 3. And they're 12th of the nation in 3-point percentage, and they've lost 5 of their last 6 games. Like, I think Marcus Bingham kind of has a Brandon Johns thing going on because he's should be better than he was. He was awesome against Hunter Dickinson 1-on-1 when he played Michigan at Breslin, but for whatever reason, he just keeps getting pulled out of games and can't stay on the floor because his coach is in his head so much. But they're without Bingham playing well, they just don't have anybody who can defend the post.
Yeah, it's a strange team because I look at them and I think they should be doing a lot better than they are, because they do have a bunch of guys who really can shoot the ball. I mean, they got a whole team of shooters. On the other hand, they're the world champions at turning the ball over, and they don't create any turnovers. And so I don't know what's going on there. Is it just a crappy coaching job by Tom Izzo? Maybe. Is it something else? But it feels like a team that should be achieving at a much higher level than they are. Maybe it's point guard play. But on the other hand, Hoggard has not been that bad. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, Izzo, he was saying before the season that this would be a good year for Hoggard, and talking him up as much as what's the transfer kid's name?
Walker.
Walker. Yeah.
I was a little bit skeptical, but he's been proven right about that. I do question his belief that he's getting teed up because of Juwan. I mean,
my goodness.
What?
Yeah. He claimed Izzo claims that because of it wasn't a direct reference to Juwan, but it was certainly an indirect reference. But that because of the fight or at the Michigan Wisconsin game, that the refs are eyeing him more skeptically than usual.
Oh my God!
I mean, the guy is he's a narcissist. He's a
if I had
complete
ever
narcissist.
officiated a mission, I can't believe that he stays in games.
Yeah.
I
know it's one of the craziest, even among Izzo takes. That's like right at the top. So.
Oh man, I'm so glad you didn't hear that ahead of time, because we got a chance to hear how incredulous.
Has anyone ever shown Tom Izzo a picture of Tom Izzo talking to an official?
Right.
hell, talking to his players with his teeth bared like a wild animal and his
Yeah.
fists clenched.
Good
I
Lord.
mean,
Or
he's-
how he sets screens on every time his team comes down the floor, right?
yeah.
Yeah, the dude, it was again vintage classic Tom Izzo. But you know everything that we just said, and you know they'll play better against Michigan. That's just how it goes. Right?
Well, they've played well against us, and they probably continue to play well. We just have to play a little better. The I have a question for you guys. Is what did you think of Kobe and Frankie's play? Now, Frankie has been, has been like a guy driving on the autobahn, but it's really like a school district.
Right.
It's like he knows one speed,
Yeah.
200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I think the big thing for Frankie is it isn't, you often hear about the game needing to slow down. No, he needs to slow down. Although he did make an incredible play last night with a Euro step and just an incredible layup in traffic. And so, but the big thing to me last night was Kobe actually ended up with more minutes than Brandon Johns. And Kobe seemed,
He was a more confident player.
yeah, he seemed to, I mean, he didn't shoot it great, but he seemed just a little more comfortable on the court last night, which I think and I think the same can be said for Frankie's an unbelievable athlete. I mean, you're not going to find a better athlete than Frankie Collins. The question is whether he can sort of harness it all and put it all together in something that resembles basketball. So
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, Brandon Johns just strikes me as a player that is playing with zero confidence on the offensive end of the floor.
yeah,
Fortunately, he's doing other things. He had a
right.
nice
He had
pass,
a nice block last night.
nice block. But you're shooting the basketball. You talk about a guy being in his own head. Kofi, though, second half, Kofi and Frankie, they joined in that freshman party with Caleb Houston. And, both of those guys gave him a jolt. And that's the Kobe, watching Kobe shoot that three in transition. I was like, yeah, that's Kobe. And Phil said he didn't like the shot till it went in. I like that he felt confident enough to jack that one. I like the aggression under the rim. And I think it goes back to even with him on the defensive end of the floor. Yeah, he got beat a couple of times, but I thought he was more connected defensively in this game than I've seen him beat this.
Yeah, he was getting torched earlier in the season against Sam Sessoms. And then, he's checking Geo Baker on a couple of things and forces Baker into tough contested pull-ups. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of progress from him. And he had a good game against Iowa as well, chipped in 10 points. And, one of the things that this team needs is they need someone other than Brooks, Dickinson, and Devontae Jones to produce somewhat consistently. And we got it from Buffkin against Iowa. We got it from Caleb Houston against Rutgers. And if they can just get a fourth guy to contribute, get some buckets, then things look a lot better.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, getting the break sign from Mr. Weintraub. So we'll take this break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll talk. Spring football is underway. You got Denard Robinson coming back to town. The hockey team. The beat just keeps going on. How about this question? Who brought this up? Was it Spath? Was it Spath who said, "Hey, is Luke Hughes? Can you make a case for him to be the best guy on the team?"
I think you can.
All right, so we'll get to all of that when we return here on the Insider on Sports Talk 1050 TK.
Hey, Sam.
And we are clear on the radio.
Yes, sir.
On the Martelli interview today, he said something that made me feel quite sad.
Which one?
And he said, talking about that his family, he said not having any family around.
Yeah, Phil lives here. His family is in Philly.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, that's kind of sad.
Yeah, he has.
Yeah. So, so his wife doesn't live here.
His wife does not live here.
Wow.
Whose wife doesn't live here?
Phil.
Martelli. Yeah, so I don't know. That it just made me feel sad when he said that. And
It was good. That's why, not that you want games to be canceled due to COVID, but if there was a silver lining to it, is that Phil got a chance to go home. and see his family
Yeah.
over the holiday break. So yeah, man, he's
So is he sort of a short termer? Could he go back to Philly next year? Is he looking for a head coaching job again?
I honestly don't know. It doesn't seem like he's actively
Mhm.
on the hunt, but he's after being a head coach for so long, I can't imagine he would say no as someone came to. What I can't tell you is he chasing it? I don't know if he's
Yeah.
chasing it.
And-
Like Sadi and Howard Isley, like those guys are looking for opportunities, the right opportunity. Like
Right.
we obviously we know Sadi turned down Western Michigan.
Yeah, I know it's sort of a surprise because he's a Western grad, right? And he just felt that wasn't a good opportunity, or
He's top. Yeah, he's gonna get a good job.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when it comes.
He was up for the Penn State job when
Okay.
Micah got it. So it's got to be, if you're him, why go be a head coach at a mid-major making the same or close to the same
Yeah.
money as you make as an assistant at Michigan, right? Or just wait for a Power 5 opportunity,
Mhm.
even if it's like a Penn State. I mean, but at least you're at a Power 5 institution.
Back on radio in about 30.
You probably got at least
Yeah.
double your salary. And same thing for Howard. I think those guys are being a little more discerning than just taking the first thing that comes their way. So I imagine Phil is the same, because I don't think he wants to be, just listening to him talk, I don't think he wants to be a head coach again so bad that he would take the first thing that comes his way.
Yeah.
Coming back on radio, guys. Stand by.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. He's not a young guy, so people may have some reticence.
Yeah, but being close
Hey,
to
guys, coming back here on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTK.com. I want to remind you, if you're in the market for a new vehicle, get on board with Brighton Ford. They have that great deal right now that if you order a new Ford, you can save $1,000. If you're looking to lease, they have great lease deals as well, like the one on the 2022 Ford Edge SEL, all-wheel drive, $235 a month with $3,176 down, or $349 a month with $500 down. You have the 2022 Ford Expedition Limited Max, $415 a month with $3,800 down on that big boy, $557 a month with $500 down. Last but not least, the Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, $292 a month with $2,800 down, or $474 a month with $500 down. For those and other great deals, get on board with Brighton Ford by going to BrightonFord.com. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD. Make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. So, fellas, spring ball underway. There's so much going on. Y'all, a lot of people just lost sight of, the process of getting ready for the next season is underway. Mentor getting broken in as the DC. You got some coaching swaps, maybe some experiments as far as guys playing different positions are concerned. I think maybe the most noteworthy news, football related, over the past week is word that Denard is coming back. I first heard about this a few weeks ago when we heard about Ashawn getting ready to leave. So Ashawn going down to Ole Miss, and Ashawn said they're going to be bringing Denard in, probably in some personnel or recruiting role. I think that's a positive move, man. You got some, what guy I'm thinking of immediately, and I got to talk to the folks in the city about this. But man, this is Devin's man. This is Devin's guy. Now being on the staff, I maybe being overly optimistic, fellas, but I gotta believe that this helps with Dante Moore.
Well, I mean, my only question about bringing Denard Robinson back is, why did it take so long? This man is sunshine and light, and everybody in his presence will benefit from it. So yes, it's long may he reign.
Can I tell you something about Denard Robinson that I get from, because we've had him on the podcast before. We've had a lot of the guys that he played with talk to us before, and the one thing that fans don't know about Denard Robinson is he's one of the hardest workers to ever come through Michigan. So this is a guy who he's going to put in time too. So just having him, you think that man, this guy is sunshine and he's awesome and everyone loves him and what a great guy. But also, I mean, this dude works, and he was the one who kind of like wrapped everyone together when they lost Rich Rod and said, you guys want to lose or not, and like those are some legendary workouts that he was leading. So I mean, Denard is not just the smiles and fun Denard that we know. Like deep down, like this guy is a real asset to a football program. I know he was in Jacksonville too. So, I mean, hell yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
he'll be a positive presence in the building. We got a question in the chat. Why would you ask your best blocking receiver to move to DB? It's talking about Mikey Sainristil. This is one I heard about a couple of months ago too, probably before Mikey, right? That they're gonna be talking to him about playing DB. But look, man, necessity is the mother of invention, right? He was a two-way player in high school. They need corner help. I still expect them to be looking in the portal post spring when other guys jump in. A good thing that you got Will enrolling early. Good thing that Will is physically ready to go, because even if he wasn't, they were going to need him to be. And I this is the other thing. They're loaded at receiver. And I'm telling you right now, I know that there are guys in that receiver room. There's one that I'm thinking of in particular that was looking very closely at, like, man, what's the playing time going? What's the breakdown going to be? I might have to look around if things aren't looking a certain kind of way. So I say that not to strike fear, not to suggest that someone is going to be on their way out, but to highlight the fact that that's a loaded room. And if you got some space or a need at corner, and you got a receiver that can play there and really help, oh man, you do that, because it helps you with two problems. It helps you with the lack of depth at the DB spot, and it helps you with the excessive depth at the receiver position. I'm not worried about blocking, because anyone that doesn't block will not play for Ron Bellamy. Period. You don't block, you don't play. Really,
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And the I don't know if you guys saw any of his tape as a defensive back in high school. I did not, but I just have an instinct that if a guy's that good of a blocker, he can probably tackle. And it isn't that corners don't have to tackle; they got to tackle. And the other thing is, if it doesn't work out, doesn't mean you can't move him back into a place where you feel he has greater utility. I just have a hunch that this might be a good move for both Sandersville and the team. I think it's possible. It's possibly a
you
big
try it.
deal win. You
It's
try it
something.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you try it out and you see, and get this. D Tuck says he won't play it down at DB. I hope that's the case. I hope
Yeah.
that's the case.
I mean, it's terrifying from a defensive back standpoint, because where were we last year? We're like, oh no, our cornerbacks, right? I'm kind of taking it from Ronnie Bell's coming back.
Yep.
Where do you want Ronnie? Where's the best place to use Ronnie Bell? Is the slot. He's
Slot.
been very effective in the slot. He is still the best blocker on Michigan's team, not Mike Sainristil. Among the receivers, it's Ronnie Bell. So let's not forget that guy is going to be the highlight of Michigan's offense this year, as long as he's healthy. And that was at Sainristil's spot. So it made sense to me from that perspective. Also, getting some leadership. I mean, Sainristil is he's a worker. He's one of the older players now. He's been around, and they've got a lot of freshmen coming in, a lot of freshmen who are going to imagine that they want to play. And you kind of need someone with that group showing them, this is what it takes. I really hope that he's not the starting cornerback this year, because there's I remember his tape. It was all right. It was I think that a lot of schools were looking at him as a cornerback, and his upside was a lot higher at slot receiver, and I like him as a slot receiver. If he spends the year at cornerback and goes back to slot next year, I think that'd be fine. I think that cross-training players actually helps them become better players, and hopefully that's the plan here, just because they got so many excess receivers, and Ronnie Bell plays his position.
Yeah, no doubt. Great thoughts. All right, so Craig Ross seemed to agree with the. I think it was Spath that brought it up, or maybe it was you, Craig. Forgive me if I'm taking credit away from you and talking about Luke Hughes. You said, "Hey, man, wait a minute. Can we make the case for someone other than Owen Power being the best player on the team?
Well, I hope Spath said it because he probably knows more about hockey than I do. But I think Luke Hughes is unbelievable at this point. Now he still can be negligent on the defensive end at times, but his skating ability, his ability on the power play, his ability as a puck handler and passer and a shooter. I mean, he's got, I think, 16 goals right now, which is a remarkable number for a defenseman at this point, or at any point. Uh, I think there's a case to be made that that he's right there as good as any other player at worst on this team. I mean, Michigan without their 4 Olympians, I didn't think they'd win all 4 games. I mean, I thought maybe Michigan State, because Michigan State's like skating in cement overshoes, but 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 I really didn't expect them to play that well against Ohio State without those guys, but they did, and a good part of it I felt was Luke Hughes, although other guys stepped up. Obviously, they got good goaltending, and Johnny Beecher all of a sudden at this late date has become a really nice playmaker on his line. Still has trouble scoring, but you're seeing a lot of good things from Beecher.
Yeah, but so Brian, I what was saving this question for you. Can you make the case again? Can you make the case question that the Olympians are having 4 Olympians, even though they're your best player, that Michigan's a better team as a result of them being away from it, because you grew your depth that much more in their absence. Can you make that case?
Yeah, you can make that case. They went 4-0 without him. They dominated most of those games. Ohio State was a little bit more feisty, especially on the Friday night game. But yeah, I mean, you come back and now you're going to see Ethan Edwards on Michigan's third pair, and Ethan Edwards has been very good for the past 2 months.
Yeah.
The only thing that I think that they didn't really progress on is like the power play, but their whole power play was in Beijing, so that happens. I mean, and then you have Samoskevich kind of coming up as a guy who's performing better. You have Marcus Stappa, although he needs to stop taking some penalties. You have Dylan Duke, who's actually done some good work in the past few weeks too. So yeah, now you have some decisions about who you're actually going to sit, and it's not clear who that's going to be. And Michigan is fighting for the number 1 overall seed. They're fighting for a Big Ten championship, so this weekend should be pretty exciting.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and we lost twice to Notre Dame.
No, they were overtime losses. 3-on-3 hockey is not hockey.
Okay, all right, you're right. But we were ahead by 2 goals in both those games, I believe, and
Yes.
and blew the lead. And Notre Dame's a good team. I think Michigan's a better team, so we'll see what happens at South Bend this weekend. But I'm blocking on my thought on hockey. So
Well, while you find it, big game tonight for Michigan women's basketball.
Mm-hmm.
They are on the cusp, on the verge, winning the first Big Ten title in program history. If they win out, it's a done deal, right? If they lose, they'll need a little bit of help. Senior night tonight, Naz Hillman's last regular season game at the Chrysler Center. You talk about a legacy player in a rivalry game. I think that Michigan comes out and delivers a decisive blow to Michigan State tonight. I'm curious what you guys not only think of this game, but will this team go on to win the Big Ten championship? What do you make of their postseason prospects as well?
They played a little soft against Michigan State the last time they played them, if you remember that game. And I know Michigan was a little upset with themselves afterwards. State just made a whole bunch of shots in that game. But like this game, like the women I think are going to want this one more than any game I can think of in a long time, because like they did not sit well with them the way they played against Michigan State last time, and now you got everything on the table in front of you. But I mean, winning out is hard. Like this is not just an easy league anymore.
Yeah, but watching what they just did to Maryland, Craig, I mean, again, that's a Maryland team. It's one of the best teams in the country. They destroyed Maryland in College Park, but that was with Leah Brown. Leah Brown didn't play in this game, the other night, and then they still won.
Yeah.
Decisively.
Well, they're getting a lot from Layla Filea, if I'm saying her name right.
Filia.
Philia and Philia, sorry, and she's going to be one of the better players who's ever played at Michigan. I think that's really obvious. Naz Hillman is of course the best player who ever played at Michigan. Leah Brown is a big deal. She, having her out is important because she really is their second best scorer, and she's a tough player and physical. Michigan's issue to me is turnovers. This team is just careless with the ball over and over and over and over. I think in the Maryland game they had something like 16 turnovers in the first half, and I know there's more turnovers in the women's game than the men's game, but still they're often just kicking the ball out of bounds. So I mean, if they can limit turnovers, I don't see any reason why this can't be a Final Four team even.
Yeah.
I think they could be a Final Four team if Brown is back, if they're healthy, if they can just be a little less careless with the ball. I think this is a potential Final Four team.
Yeah, 22 turnovers in the game. To your point, 19 points off turnovers for Maryland in the contest. If there weren't for turnovers, they would have gotten destroyed again.
Right.
As it stands, they lost by 12 points, but it would have looked a lot like the game down in College Park if Michigan didn't turn the basketball over as much as they did. So I think they get this one. I'm with you. This is a squad that can, with Leah Brown back, and that to me is really the debate. If she can go, do you play her tonight, or do you just rest her one more game, let her play against Iowa to sort of get her feet wet for the Big Ten tournament, just to give her as much rest as you possibly can for what's going to be some continuous basketball here over the next couple of weeks? I don't know what the answer is going to be, but it seems like she's close. We know she's close to coming back because she's been looking better. Ira was talking about how good she's looking in warm-ups here over the last couple of times out. So she's close to coming back. We'll see how it goes. Fellas, always a spirited discussion. Appreciate your time and perspective as always. Be sure to check the fellas out over on MGoBlog. Be sure to check us out on the next MGoBlog Roundtable next week. Of course, Ira and I will be back tomorrow here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA The Ticket, the official voice of University of Michigan Sports, Ann Arbor, a Cumulus station.